And we have 4 months to go before that general elections is going to be keenly contested. And today, Akufo-Addo got the final opportunity for his finance minister to present his final mid-year budget review. And for Dr. Amin Adam, this was his first indeed. But for the government and for the Akufo-Addo presidency, this is his last mid-year budget review. And so this was a big deal indeed. Also because it comes in an election year. And one of the key things he says today is that they are not seeking to ask for more money to spend. In fact, his point is simple. The government is going to live within its means this year for the remainder of the year. And why is that important? We know this is critical because in election years, what tends to happen is that government overspend. And we have a significant budget deficit that then after the elections, the next government will have to spend some time trying to fix. But he tells Parliament today that government is going to live within its means. And for you out there, what is in this for you? And many of you are getting home right now wondering, what should I focus on if I missed it? A few things we want you to focus on. Some of the key bullet points. The minister told us today that there are no new taxes. And for you, that definitely is good news. Because going into this, many actually expected that the presidency, the finance ministry, will give us something that may provide some relief. Well, we didn't get the relief, but we also got no new taxes. What else will you focus on? You should also focus on the fact that in 2025, whoever wins the elections after the 2024 general elections on December, government says they are laying plans now for road tolls to return. They scrapped it, they abolished it, they've eaten the humble pie, they want to return next year. But who really will be there next year? They may not be there, because it's an elections and it's anybody's elections this year. It could be NPP's election, it could be NDC's election as well. Another thing to focus on is no additional expenditure is the point I was making earlier. They're going to live within their means, and for them, this is key. We'll tell you where they are going to cut, because they're actually proposing to cut a fair bit in the appropriation that they've already placed before the Parliament last year to govern the entire 2024 period, right? Then we'll come to that. And then we know that there are a few things they want to do when it comes to the Labour front. A new law is going to go to Parliament, and a few things that I saw that was interesting. One is that they want to introduce paternity leave, but they also want to extend maternity leave. It's a proposal they're making, and they're going to go to Parliament for that to happen. So what's in it for you? If you are interested in this, then it's one of the areas we want to highlight for you to pay attention to as government goes to Parliament with that. And then, of course, you're going to prioritize a few roads, right? And for many people, if you travel the length and breadth of this country, you're asking them, what will influence your vote? And I did that in 2016 with ballot box. The top two, you will definitely have road cities. So the government is aware of this, and they're going to spend some money doing that. Whilst they spend the money fixing the roads, so they're telling us that they're going to be reducing the appropriation by 21.7 billion cedis. That is huge, right? But if they're doing this, the question then becomes, what are they cutting specifically to accommodate this reduction? And appropriation have already been approved and passed. It's a legislation that has been approved. Will they go to Parliament with this proposal for this cut to happen? At least that is what they're proposing, 21.7 billion. The Deputy Finance Minister will join me here on PM Express and tell us where will they cut to accommodate this 21.7 billion that the Finance Ministry told Parliament they will be seeking a reduction in as far as the appropriation that they placed before Parliament is concerned for the 2024 budget year. Now, another important point that we noticed today is the key issues around social interventions, right? 5.4 billion is what you're hoping to spend on this. LEAP is one of them. Another key point is school feeding is going to be important. Again, remember, what's in it for you? Government says it's going to spend this on school feeding, LEAP, but also NHIS is also going to take a fair bit of this cut here to improve it a bit more. And then capitation grant will also be one that will be focusing on in terms of spending this 5.4 billion that they are hoping to spend. And then there's this big figure I want to also put across That is what they have spent between January and June this year on the free SHS policy, 1.5 billion. Both parties, both candidates are proposing a review of the free SHS. And so we are waiting for the specifics in the respective manifestos. And then we get a sense of whether or not this amount going forward will be less. But this is what government has spent in the last, 6 months. And it was before Parliament today for consideration. The MPs were debating this. But talking about roads, though, and I made the point about how much money they want to spend on roads this year, and that is a priority area for them. So which roads, if you're asking, let me tell you, one of the roads they're focusing on is Kumasi Highway. If you travel on that road, government says this is an area of focus for them going forward. That's not the only road you're focusing on. The Accra-Takoradi Highway, if you drive on that stretch, you possibly will notice that work is already going on. The finance minister says they will complete this. And that same stretch, though, you're talking about the Takoradi-Agoda in Kwanta Junction. He also says that will be completed. Timelines, we didn't quite get clarity on that, but government has committed resources for this. But the almighty Temafenyo Road, which many who live on that stretch have been complaining about for a while, government says there is money for it, and they will make sure it is completed. So these are some key roads the government is going to be focusing on going forward. But for Guta, and they'll be joining me for a conversation tonight, the issue about the cedi's depreciation was important. I checked the budget review statement, shortly after it was delivered by the finance minister. And as far as the subject of depreciation of the cedi is concerned, there was 2 mentions in the budget. And in the first mention in the budget, when they mentioned the subject of depreciation of the cedi and what government intends to do about it, was really to just, in essence, tell us how the cedi has performed against the major currencies. And this is the graph that tells the story. The government was simply comparing for us what has happened last year to this year. And the second time, they went a bit specific, tell us whether there has been an improvement or otherwise. And if you look at, for example, the 2024 as against 2023, you see the government making the point, the finance minister making a point today, that we have seen an improvement in terms of the cedi's strength against the dollar. And you see there, he says, for the dollar, for example, which is for many what they watch, last year we were at 22% in terms of depreciation. This year we're just doing 18%. And he says that is improvement. Is that good enough for Guta, for example? We'll ask them when we sit for a conversation. And then we talk about the public debt, which, by the way, is a fundamental reason why we went to the IMF. Our debt has become unsustainable. It currently sits at 70.6% to GDP. And we're talking about 724 billion. That is huge, up 22%. So that is climbing. And you see why government is proposing to cut expenditure this year. They're not asking Parliament for more. They simply want to cut a bit more from the appropriation. We'll get some specifics as far as that is concerned. But then you're still talking about budget deficit. And that is, how do you square this circle? Government is cutting expenditure, reducing appropriation, but we still are going to have budget deficit because government is still spending in areas, right? And how are they going to finance this? They tell us they're going to do this. Domestic financing, treasury bills, etc. is going to be an area where they still look to finance this particular deficit. 54 billion. Question is government doing enough to cut this down? But they also want to rely a bit more on foreign financing. But you know that when it comes to foreign financing, we are currently locked out of the international capital markets. There is the expectation that with all the restructuring, this will be open for us somehow. But government is really relying on bilateral, multilateral funding, World Bank, etc., to show up and clear this particular huge bill that will emerge in terms of the deficit going forward. Will they succeed? I don't know. The minority believe this is much ado about nothing. The economy is on autopilot. That's according to Kesala Tofosi, who you see behind me there making that point. My guest to join.